Last spring, my mother looked me dead in the eyes and said, "No one even knows your small business." Then she smiled at my brother. "Derek earns real money." I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I just folded my napkin, stood up from that dinner table, and walked out before anyone saw my hands shaking. My name is Vesper Hale. I was 29, the daughter nobody bragged about, the sister everyone politely ignored, and the founder of a company my family treated like an expensive hobby. To them, Derek was the golden son.
Corporate job.
Polished shoes. Big title. Loud laugh. Mom introduced him like he was royalty.
Me?
I was still trying. That night, at my mother's birthday dinner, she spent 20 minutes praising Derek's promotion while I sat beside my untouched plate. When my aunt asked about my work, Mom cut in before I could answer. "She runs a little office thing," she said. "Nothing serious." Derek smirked. I looked at him, then at Mom, and said nothing. Because 5 months later, Derek would walk into my headquarters, completely unaware whose name was on the wall. After that dinner, I stopped trying to earn my family's approval. For years, I had chased it. When I launched my company at 24, I worked from a tiny rented room with a folding desk and a second-hand laptop. I slept 4 hours a night, handled customer support myself, and spent weekends teaching myself things I couldn't afford to outsource. Mom never cared. Whenever relatives asked how business was going, she'd immediately change the subject to Derek. "He's managing a huge team now. Derek just bought a new car. Derek got another bonus." It became a family tradition. At holidays, birthdays, even funerals, somehow every conversation ended with praise for Derek. The truth was Derek loved it. He enjoyed correcting people, enjoyed dropping salary figures into conversations, enjoyed reminding everyone that he worked for a major consulting firm while I ran what he called a cute little startup. I smiled through it. What none of them knew was that my company had quietly begun attracting larger clients. Very large clients. The kind that didn't care about flashy titles. The kind that cared about results. 3 months after Mom's birthday dinner, my biggest opportunity arrived in a single email. When I opened it and saw the sender's name, I nearly dropped my phone. Because the company contacting me was one Derek talked about constantly. The email came from one of the largest manufacturing groups in the country. Derek mentioned them constantly. Whenever our family gathered, he found a way to bring them up. They only work with the best firms. Their contracts are massive. Getting in front of them is nearly impossible. According to Derek, companies spent years trying to earn their attention. Apparently, mine didn't have to. Over the next 6 weeks, my team and I sat through presentations, negotiations, audits, and strategy meetings. Every department was examined. Every number was verified. It was exhausting. But every time I wanted to complain, I remembered my mother's voice. "No one even knows your small business." That sentence became fuel. Meanwhile, Derek grew even more arrogant. At a family barbecue, he casually asked whether I was still working from my little office. Several relatives laughed. Mom laughed too. I smiled and took a sip of my drink. 2 weeks later, the manufacturing group selected a partner. My partner. The contract was worth more than every deal I'd signed in the previous 3 years combined. I told nobody. Not Mom. Not Derek. Not even most of my relatives. Because while reviewing project documents, I noticed something interesting. Another company would be working alongside us. And that company happened to employ my brother. The official kickoff meeting was scheduled for September. Representatives from multiple companies would attend, including Derek's firm. The moment I saw their name on the attendee list, I felt my pulse quicken. Not because I was nervous, because I finally understood why keeping quiet had felt so right. For months, my family had treated me like a failure. Now reality was preparing its own response. The morning of the meeting, our headquarters buzzed with activity. Employees moved through the lobby carrying tablets and presentation materials. The reception screens displayed project schedules. Conference rooms were packed. I arrived early. No dramatic entrance.
No speech.
Just another workday. Around 10 o'clock, I received a message from reception. Derek's team had arrived. I opened the security feed on my monitor. there he was. Perfect suit. Confident smile. The same expression he'd worn every time he mocked my business. He stepped through the revolving doors with 3 colleagues behind him. Then he entered the main lobby. His smile disappeared. I watched him stop so suddenly that the man behind him nearly walked into his back. Because dominating the wall behind reception was a 12-foot illuminated company display. And at the center of it was my photograph. Underneath it were 3 words. Founder and CEO, Vesper Hale. For several seconds, Derek didn't move. He simply stared. His eyes traveled from the giant display to the reception desk, then back to my photograph. One of his coworkers said something. Derek didn't answer. Another pointed at the wall. Still nothing. I watched the color drain from his face. Then my phone rang.
Mom.
I ignored it. A minute later, she called again. Then again. I already knew why. Derek had undoubtedly texted her the second he entered the building. The same son she'd spent years praising was standing inside the company she claimed nobody had heard of. I finally answered on the 4th call. Vesper, Mom said sharply. Why didn't you tell us your company was this? I leaned back in my chair. Tell you what? Don't play games. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then I said the words I'd waited months to say. You never ask. Silence. The kind that hurts more than shouting. Before she could respond, my assistant knocked on my office door. Derek Hale is here, she said. I thanked her and ended the call. Through the glass wall, I could see him waiting outside the conference room. For the first time in my life, my brother looked uncertain. And our meeting hadn't even started yet. When I entered the conference room, every conversation stopped. Derek was standing near the far end of the table. The moment he saw me, his eyes widened again. Not because he hadn't recognized my name on the wall, because seeing me walk in as the person leading the meeting made it real. I took my seat at the head of the table, the seat reserved for the decision-maker. Several executives greeted me. I greeted them back. Then I opened the presentation. For the next hour, I walked everyone through timelines, budgets, deliverables, and strategy. Nobody interrupted. Nobody questioned whether I belonged there. The same confidence my family had ignored for years was now the reason this project existed. Halfway through the meeting, one executive turned to Derek. Your team will report directly to Vesper's division on this project. I didn't look at him. I didn't need to. The silence beside me said everything. After the meeting ended, people began filing out. Derek remained behind. Finally, he spoke. You never told us. I gathered my notes calmly. You never listened.
His jaw tightened.
For the first time, there was no arrogance in his voice. Only frustration. And something that looked suspiciously like regret. But the real consequences of that day wouldn't hit him until the following week. Because his company had made a very expensive mistake. A week after the meeting, my team completed a routine compliance review. That's when we found it. Several deliverables assigned to Derek's firm were behind schedule. Not by days, by weeks. Worse, critical reports contained errors that could delay the entire project. The discovery triggered an executive review. Suddenly, the company that Derek had spent years bragging about was under scrutiny. Every missed deadline was documented. Every mistake was examined. And because my company was leading the project, I couldn't protect them even if I wanted to. The rules applied equally to everyone, including my brother. 3 days later, Derek called me. I let it go to voicemail. Then another call. And another. Eventually, he left a message. Vesper, please call me. We need to talk. It was strange hearing panic in his voice. Months earlier, he had laughed at my business in front of relatives. Now he needed my cooperation to help save his reputation. The executive board eventually removed his team from several key responsibilities. The financial hit to his firm was significant. But what shocked my family wasn't the setback. It was discovering that I had done absolutely nothing to cause it. The truth alone had done enough damage. And then Mom showed up at my office unannounced. Mom arrived without calling. For years, she had expected doors to open for her automatically. This time, she waited in reception for nearly 20 minutes before I agreed to see her. When she entered my office, she looked around slowly. The city skyline stretched behind me through floor-to-ceiling windows. Awards lined one wall. Project displays covered another. For a moment, she seemed unable to find the words. Then she finally sat down. "I didn't know," she said quietly. I studied her face. The woman who had spent years dismissing me suddenly looked older than I remembered. "You didn't want to know," I replied. The truth hit harder than anger ever could. Her eyes filled with tears. Not because Derek's company had lost influence. Not because my business had succeeded. Because she realized she had missed every step of the journey. Every struggle. Every victory. Every moment that mattered. She had been so focused on celebrating one child that she never truly saw the other. Before leaving, she stopped at the door. "I'm proud of you, Vesper." 5 months earlier, those words would have meant everything. Now they were simply words. Because the greatest revenge wasn't humiliating my brother. It was building something so extraordinary that the people who doubted me could no longer ignore my name.